Good afternoon. Welcome to Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress. My name is Buffy. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Happy to have you. If you're a returning viewer, also welcome. Happy to have you. I'm a women's lifestyle creator on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, covering topics that concern women. Today we're doing a three-part series, When Survival Becomes a Habit. Emotional mutual combat, when everyone is hurting and no one is innocent. We're going to talk a lot about relational trauma, family conflict, and why both sides were wrong doesn't mean both sides were safe. Let's talk about what emotional mutual combat actually looks like, the provocation, the escalation, and the retaliation. Biologically, during escalation, when we perceive a threat, our sympathetic nervous system kicks in, initiating the fight, flight, or freeze response, or fawn response, depending. This involves a cascade of physiological changes. One of those is the hormone release. The adrenal glands release stress hormones like adrenaline, or epinephrine, and cortisol. Adrenaline provides an immediate burst of energy, increasing your heart rate, which is why you may feel like your chest is racing. Increases the blood pressure and respiration, so you start breathing heavily. You may even see red or get kind of like, oh my goodness, like I'm having trouble breathing a little bit. And then cortisol helps sustain this response. As well, you have increased alertness, which senses become heightened, pupils dilate, your attention narrows to the perceived threat. Blood redistribution. Blood is shunted away from non-essential functions like digestion and the prefrontal cortex to the muscles, preparing the body for action or to fight. Muscle tension. Muscles tense up, ready for a physical response. Fist City, right? Loretta Lynn, Fist City. Welcome to Fist City. Just kidding. I've not been in a fight, nor do I want to be. And then why logic disappears during a threat. The redirection of blood flow and energy to survival functions means that parts of the brain responsible for higher order thinking, like the prefrontal cortex, become less active. So we're not thinking clearly, likely. The amygdala, which processes emotions, particularly fear, takes over. So the body part responsible for fear is in the driver's seat. Should we be afraid? Most likely. And then the amygdala hijack. This term describes the phenomenon where the amygdala bypasses the prefrontal cortex, says, get in the back seat, I'm driving, leading an immediate instinctual reaction rather than a reasoned one, right? Which is why we're so rational when we're dealing with fight or flight. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism allowing for rapid responses to danger without the delay of complex thought, because complex thought takes time we don't have, right? And then cognitive tunneling. Our focus narrows intensely on the threat, making it difficult to process other information or consider alternative perspectives. Nope, we've got this. Tunnel vision. Impaired memory. The stress response can also impair the formation and recall of memories, especially those not directly related to the threat. Why winning the argument never brings relief, even though we think it will. Even if you win an argument, the underlying physiological stress response may not immediately dissipate, and true resolution is often elusive, as we know. Continued sympathetic activation. While the immediate threat of the argument might be over, the body can remain in a state of heightened arousal for some time due to lingering stress hormones. Don't we know it? Emotional residue. Arguments often leave behind emotional residue like resentment, anger, or hurt, which are not resolved by intellectual victory. The emotional brain, or the limbic system, is still alive. Relationship damage. Winning an argument often comes at the expense of a relationship. Hopefully not, especially if you are close with that person and you can apologize and mend it. It can damage trust, create distance, and lead to future conflicts. Lack of empathy and understanding. A focus on winning often means a lack of empathy and failure to truly understand the other person's perspective, which is crucial for genuine resolution and relief. The goal shifts from connection to dominance. The problem may persist. Winning an argument doesn't necessarily solve the core issue that led to the conflict. If the underlying problem isn't addressed, it will likely resurface, of course. In essence, our nervous system is wired for survival, and during perceived threats, including intense arguments, it prioritizes immediate action over logic and long-term relational well-being. Understanding these mechanics can help us respond more effectively to conflict and regulate our own stress responses. So ultimately, we are doing when survival becomes a habit. And ultimately, when you're engaging in fight or flight in an argument, especially with a family member who is not willing to take your side, definitely makes sense. I mean, we're dealing with relational trauma, family conflict, and why both sides were wrong, right? Because ultimately, not every person is going to be 100% right or 100% wrong. We're all kind of to blame for that. And so, as we talked about, emotional and mutual conflict can be very disturbing and very hard to take, with the provocation, the escalation, and even the retaliation. And two people can both be wounded. Two people can get into this mutual combat, not because they want to, but maybe they're trying to save face for whatever reason. But only one holds the power, right? And that is the ability to be able to try to talk in a reasonable, rational manner without throwing fists or being nasty or passive aggressive with the other. And like we talked about, the nervous system's going to show up, right? And then you're going to have some lingering effects from that. And then there is the myth of equal blame and emotionally unequal relationships, especially if you're like the child in the situation or you're the scapegoat in the situation. You may not have the equal bargaining power that the parent or the person who escalated the argument started. You can acknowledge your reaction without taking responsibility for someone else's harm. And so ultimately, we're dealing with the idea of, well, this person was to blame because they did this and they said this, and I was trying to talk to them and they weren't listening to me. And then you think about the potential for, if you have to share custody of your child, sometimes there can be high conflict co-parenting going on, right? Where each of you doesn't really want to yield because, hey, it was my weekend. Yeah, but I asked you to trade the weekend and you said, okay. And then you changed your mind. And literally, I have done family law as well. And it is very, very difficult sometimes to get two parents who are no longer together to actually get onto the same page. And those parents that are usually the most successful with co-parenting are those who are able to relate with each other. Now, again, each side equally has a part in that, right? I mean, if you have someone who's really extremely difficult and is a no holds barred person, I want my way, or it's my way or the highway, or they're a narcissist, or they have, maybe other psychological diagnoses or whatever, then you're going to have issues, right? And that ultimately is going to fall onto the child because the child is in the middle of this kind of contest going on. And then also, I know we talked a lot about family dynamics, and if you're an adult child of emotionally immature parents, then you know what's going on, right? Like, I know you are, but what am I? And, all this other stuff going on. So ultimately, grace is learning when to engage and not escalate. Easier said than done, right? I know I did something the other day that I probably shouldn't have done because I'm very competitive about things at times. And we had a basketball game yesterday and we barely lost. And I was like, this team, like, our team should have won this. Like, our team was better. And the person's like, well, we won. And I said, barely. You lost by 1 point. And my husband looked at me and he was like, really? I was like, I'm just speaking the truth. As truth tellers, we get in trouble, don't we? I know that was probably very immature of me, but hey, everybody has their moments, right? My heart was beating out of my chest at that because I don't like close games. And a 1 point game was nuts. Nuts, I tell you, nuts. Well, so the next thing that we're also going to do, we're going to stay tuned for episode 2, Silence Isn't Weakness, and we will go into that. Thank you for tuning in to Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress, and I hope you will tune in again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.